It's time to talk Gonzaga basketball.
Get ready.
It's the Spokesman-Review Zags Insiders Podcast.
Here we go.
Here's Jim Meehan and Richard Fox.
Welcome back to the Zags Basketball Insiders Podcast. Jim Meehan of the Spokesman-Review, Richard Fox of TV fame. He's that voice you hear with the Gonzaga games on SWX, Root, and KHQ. Big week for the Zags, maybe their finest week of the season this year. Kind of breaking the quad one barrier that they'd faced all year, 0-5 in those games. They got it done at Kentucky on the road in one of the best college environments you'll ever see at Rupp Arena. Foxy, we'll get to that game. We'll get to the Portland game and what's coming up this week. But first of all, let's kind of recap where they stand in this national landscape. The Zags moved up a spot or two. They're number 24 in the net rankings, which is very solid. Kentucky is now 25. In the AP rankings that just came out, Gonzaga received, I believe, 50 points. So that was up from 2 the week before. Still not enough to crack the top 25, but enough to be 8th in the teams that received votes. Washington State is 5th in that same poll, and then St. Mary's. I guess those wins over Portland, and I don't even remember who else they beat. Portland was one of them, but they jumped all the way from the 26th spot to 18th, so they cracked the top 25. Zags are not in most of the brackets I looked at this morning, but they did gain some ground from the next 4 out to the first 4 out in a couple of them. I saw them listed as the second team in that first 4 out, third team in that first 4 out, and then Lunardi has them in the next 4 out, which is actually an improvement from where they were a week ago as well. Foxy, kind of the question now is, we got the quad one win. Resume and numbers obviously improved, but still just 1-5 in the quad one games. Do they have to win out and probably make the final of the WCC tournament to be an at-large team, or is there another avenue for them to get in?
Yeah, they certainly would do well not to lose again. Certainly, you lose that on the road to St. Mary's. I think that you probably could tolerate that a little bit better than any other kind of loss they might have. So, if they can win at St. Mary's and that's their second quad one, and they can maybe pick up another one in the league play. I'm not sure if San Francisco can be considered a quad one anymore or not. Do you know?
Yeah, there's some debate there. It sounds like it might be a chance because, and I don't get this ruling, but from what I gather, that's being played at the Chase Center. They played Minnesota at the Chase Center and won. It was not, this one against Gonzaga would be considered a home game instead of a neutral site game, is what I'm hearing. Haven't verified that. If that's the case, their net rankings in the 60s, that would fall under quad one. That could be important as well. So that might be a chance to pick up another two.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, they're obviously in a much better place on several different fronts today than they were going into that game. So, I still think it's an uphill climb for an at-large, but they did themselves a lot of favors on Saturday.
Yeah, can't do the stumble, lose to a team in the hundreds or 200s. Probably can't lose to San Francisco. I'm not sure if they beat St. Mary's, kept their nose clean, I would have to think they're pretty solid. I mean, I would think they're in the tournament if they do that.
Yeah, I would agree.
The league champ,
I think if they win out and they get to the conference tournament championship and happen to lose, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah.
But look, it's as the adage goes, one game at a time. And certainly. We'll get into this week and moving forward, but I'll be really interested to see if this is just a completely different group after being able to pull that one out at Kentucky. Sometimes it just takes a game to kind of alter your mindset. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I think that win Saturday opened the door to putting them back into at-large consideration. They've kind of had control of their own destiny the whole time. After they lost to St. Mary's, they could still win out, and I always felt that if they won out from that point, that they would be in that 10-11 seed range and make it. It kind of put them in position to be in position, but they got work to do. I mean, they still have work to do. No way around it. Can't afford any stumbles. Let's go back through last week. Portland came to town. Shante Leggins, the former Eastern Washington coach, had a really nice start at Portland. I think they got out to 19 wins that first year. Had a pretty nice run in that PK tournament in Portland, where I think they had North Carolina on the ropes and Villanova, and really did some things early on. It has not gone quite as smoothly since, and they came to Gonzaga and the McCarthy Athletic Center last week, and the way they choose to guard the Zags and have done this for the 3 visits that they've had is very 3-point friendly for Gonzaga. It brings out the best in them. They hit 18 on them one year. That was a record for the McCarthy. 17 one year on them. The other night they hit 15 on them the other night. That's, a team that's been struggling to hit threes. So that strategy stayed in place, and Gonzaga winning by big margins stayed in place. You're a little surprised that 3 years running that they're willing to kind of pack the paint, to go under, to watch guys shoot and take away the inside game more or less?
I mean, I don't think you're surprised by the decision to give that part of it, of Gonzaga's offense up. I think what's surprising is just how dramatically they give it up. In other words, it's not as if they'll close out short and stay short. It's one thing to go under, it's one thing to play off, but generally, deeper in the possession, you start kind of shrinking that distance to 3-point shooters. But Portland's not very good, and I think if Gonzaga could play if they could bottle up the shooting that they have against the bottom of the WCC, which I looked at it this morning, they're shooting 42% against the bad, the bottom half or bottom 5 teams in the league.
Sure. Yeah.
They could bottle whatever that is up and take that with them everywhere they go. They'd be really happy with that. But just a dominant performance. You're plus 13 on the glass is Gonzaga. 21 assists, 38 field goals made. That's when Gonzaga's at their best. Obviously, just moving the ball, and they just shot the ball well, not just from the 3-point line, but also inside the arc. And it was a good opportunity, I think, to get some guys some rest. And I was impressed. Obviously, Huff went off, which has kind of become the MO, or had been the MO before Saturday against lower competition. But I also thought Stromer, even though he didn't shoot the ball well, he was really active, 6 rebounds. And I thought, looking back on the week, that was a good sign for Saturday. But, Portland's just not a very good team right now. Yeah. I think Leggings is a good coach. And that Portland has had stretches in its history, at least during Gonzaga's run here, where they've been way more competitive. But for whatever reason, that's not there right now. And Gonzaga, that's one thing about this group, Jim, is they take care of the games they're supposed to. In other words, they've lost some games down the stretch that they should have won. UW and Santa Clara come to mind, but UW at the time presented some challenges. That's their first true road game. Santa Clara's second true road game, playing a conference rival, and you kind of cough those up. UW should have won against Santa Clara. You somehow would have a chance to win, miss some free throws, and Santa Clara make some plays. But other than those 2 blips, I mean, really, they've either lost to better teams or they've just dominated who they're playing. And I think that's a sign of a mature group, and we saw that against Portland again.
Yeah, I talked to Shante before that game, kind of wanted to get the feel for how they were playing, and he's a great guy to talk to. Very, very open book, and talks about everything. He mentioned that that strategy, in part, is due to Drew Timme, who just scored on everybody, 25, 30 a game, and he called Drew. I thought this was a pretty interesting way to describe it. He called him the Tim Tebow of college basketball. meaning he's that good. He was that good a player at the college level, and he had some connections with the Wisconsin Herd that Drew plays for before he got hurt here recently. That Drew's in the G League with, and Drew has told those guys that he knows that Portland was the one team that could shut him down because they just draped all over him and were willing to take the risk. And you'll remember at Portland, Strother hit 8 threes, scored 40 that game.
Yeah.
But they did keep it competitive. I think that was a 15-point game. But that's where the root of that strategy came from, I'm sure. And then you see EK and Watson and Huff, and maybe it's not one guy scoring 25 on you, but 3 of them. So
right.
I think that's the genesis of it. But
and we've talked about this throughout this season. I mean, teams in the league don't have the size up front. I mean, St. Mary's is the exception, I think, with Jefferson and Saxon. They're both big and strong, but quality bigs. But other than that, if you're one of those bottom 5 teams, you kind of have to pick and hope that your guards can get going, particularly at home, and maybe kind of go blow for blow with Gonzaga's guards that they're knocking down shots. But I don't know, maybe next year he'll change it up.
Yeah, I think he will. This rematch coming up next week, I think. So
yeah.
We'll see soon enough. But let's get on to the game of the week. Kentucky at Rupp Arena. Place is going bananas. Zags lead by 10, give it up, fall behind by 6, and you're kind of thinking this environment and giving up points the way they were, this is going to be hard to turn the tide back, but they did. And I felt it was like the shootout, especially those last 10, 12 minutes was the shootout we kind of all expected. Kentucky's defense has been a little leaky all year, and it sure was in that second half. The Zags didn't get too many stops down the stretch either. It was just basket for basket, 3-point play for 3-point play. But the Zags got it done. All 5 starters, and they've probably done this before against, some of the lower WCC teams or the SWAC teams they played in the non-conference, but all 5 starters were on it. I thought, they played very well. You can't pick a guy who didn't. You might look at Nemhard's numbers, and he didn't score it very well. He didn't shoot it very well, but he had that game on a string a little bit with coming off the pick and roll, mostly around the top of the key or in that area. I think he had 9 assists. He had 4 turnovers, and he was handling the ball all the time. And so that 4 turnovers didn't look alarming to me. The way he controlled it, the way he fed Huff, Anton, Ben Gregg, the dunk Ben Gregg had, that was a hell of a hustle play. I knew I was going to call him Andrew. Ryan came racing across, grabs the rebound, kind of all in one motion, just no look for a dunk. Ben Gregg was very good in that game, and early. Got him off to a great start early with a couple of hustle plays, a block. Just doing what he does. And Anton had some man-sized buckets at the end of that game with a big front line when they had to have them. Am I missing any? No, Graham Eke, solid from start to finish.
Everybody who played.
They had some monster efforts. But the one guy I want to talk about, and the irony hit me watching it, Braden Huff coming in for Graham Eke. 4 fouls on Graham, almost the identical scenario to the St. Mary's game. I don't remember what the score was against St. Mary's. It might have been down a couple when Braden come in. And
I think Gonzaga was up 3, I want to say. Okay. And then when EK came back, they were down by 5. That's my memory of it. But yeah.
No, it was very similar circumstance. And Graham had been playing so well. And Braden came in and just played with a confidence and kind of I can do this. I want to get back and do this when it didn't go my way the last time. Hit some buckets, hit a jump hook, got a goaltending call. They went to him. Anton said, we're not going to change. If he's scoring down there, we're going to keep throwing it. Hit 2 free throws in that mix, I believe. And he'd been really struggling at the line. I can't explain that. He's as good a 3-point shooter as they have, and he's shooting under 45% or something at the line. I thought, you remember you called him all SWAC with his performances from He was all Rupp Arena in that game.
Yeah, no, he was it was tremendous. I mean, there's just a lot to talk about with this game, and you can call out each guy and talk about what they did. I think everybody who stepped on the floor brought value and made helped impacted them finding a way to win that game. And look, Braden is as talented a scorer. I mean, he's the type of scorer like Wilcher was. Kyle, I think, more is probably a better shooter, pure shooter, but not nearly doesn't have the same size. And Braden's probably better up front. And I don't want to put pressure on a kid, but Kyle was awfully good. But he's got that kind of scoring ability where inside out, anywhere on the floor. And as he gets older and I think more comfortable, he's going to present real challenges. What I liked about what he did was it felt like he was the initiator of everything he was trying to do. So as a big, if you're going to be a good post player, a guy that plays around the basket, you have to like contact and you have to seek it out. It's not enough just to be able to absorb contact and play off of it. You have to be the one that's looking for it. And I think for Braden against a lot of these upper level teams, it's felt throughout the year like he'd absorb the contact and then try to react off of that. Against Kentucky's bigs, he's going right at them. He's creating an angle. He's getting into the lane. I thought he was quick with his decisions. Sometimes we've seen him have an open look, but pump fake, worried about getting the shot blocked. He just would go up. I mean, he was. They don't win the game if he doesn't produce. And we forget that they're freshmen. And I've said this here with you previously. I think Stromer and Huff will dictate how far they go. They have to be able to come in and have an impact. Braden certainly did. And I thought Dusty, I mean, I can't say it's the best he's played since whatever, but it's been a long time. And he didn't score. He turned down a good three, took a bad one, and then settled down. And he was active defensively, rebounded the ball, 4 rebounds, and no turnovers in 11 minutes. That's you doing your job. And I know your boys back home may not think much of it because you didn't score, but if you're part of a winning deal, those minutes were enormous. And I'm confident the staff is telling them that the scoring will come. Like he's too good to not score, but he's been, I think so much of his impact has been tied to the scoring that he hasn't been doing that. And as a result, it's just really been obvious that he's not helping them. And for whatever reason against Kentucky, the scoring wasn't there, but his impact was huge. I mean, Luka comes in for 3 minutes. That's critical. You get Hickman off the floor, just those 3 minutes. You throw an immediate timeout. That's real time for him to get off his legs. So the 3 freshmen came in, I thought all had great impacts. Huff obviously being the most notable with his ability to score and how reminiscent it was to the St. Mary's game. Yeah. Look, you talked about Nembhard. I think he took at least 2, if not 3 shots really late in the clock. He had to take them. So I think his shooting numbers look a little worse than they probably were. But what I like about what Ryan's doing, he's really not looking to score. But the way he controls Gonzaga's offense, if your point guard doesn't get rushed, you generally collectively don't get rushed. And he was so methodical. He'd push it when he needed to, but you saw late in the game, he was walking it up. Making sure they're getting their stuff. Shepard and Kentucky started trying to really overplay, deny the ball screen. They call that icing it. And he would he'd dribble enough to one angle, force Shepard to kind of square him up, and then there'd be the ball screen. Never abandon that high pick and roll. And it's really difficult to guard the pick and roll at the top of the key. And on the broadcast, they were talking about how young Kentucky was, particularly up front. And I thought Gonzaga really exploited their bigs in that high ball ball coverage. They just didn't know what to do. Yeah, I thought Nembhard was amazing, and we can keep. I will say with Greg, he looked like he was possessed from the jump. I don't think you can say enough about how good he's been since he started, and what a difference it's done to Gonzaga's team. And, on television, you tell me you were there, Gonzaga looked bigger than Kentucky. And Kentucky's big. Now, they don't play 3 bigs generally at the same time. No. But when you put E.K. Watson and Greg out there, up front anyway. Certainly not the perimeter, but up front around the basket. And when Greg's that active, I mean, they look big and strong, and it's one of the best games Ben's played. Just his activity level and his toughness. I mean, he just has a toughness to him that is, I think, really contagious for that group. So, I mean, yeah, where's your mind going with respect to the game and who to talk about? But everybody was, I mean, last thing I'd say, Watson, last 9 minutes and 39 seconds, 8 points, 3 rebounds, 2 of which were offensive, a block and an assist.
Yeah.
Took him home. So 8 points at 17 for the game, but I thought he really bided his time. He didn't force anything. Ike got it going, then Huff, and I mean, he just waited. And then down the stretch, it's like, okay, I got to make a couple plays here, and he did. It was, I thought, a really mature performance from him.
Yeah, just big time. When they had to have it, he was at the very end. He was the guy doing it. He had the ball on the wing one time. I'm trying to think. I think Thiero might have been guarding him.
Yep.
Thiero's a nice player. He's 6'8".
Yeah, I liked him.
But Anton got the ball. I think the clock might have been starting to dwindle a little, and he just Mark Few described it as, screw it, I'm going to the hole, and you're not going to stop me. And it's exactly what he did. He got a little space.
I think Thiero tipped it. So now Watson to go get his back to the basket, and he, instead of collecting it and spacing up, he just took it and went baseline. Yeah. And look, if you want to know what a high-level NBA athlete looks like, that would be Thiero. That's a high-level NBA athlete. Watson was, whenever you write the end of the season stuff and you talk about Anton Watson's career, you're certainly going to call out the 32 against UCLA, 30 against Santa Clara. I think you got to put that game up there. And I know his numbers don't jump out nearly in the same way, but he passed it well. What do you have? 4 assists, I want to say.
He fed Huff a couple times there.
Yeah. 5 assists. He had a nice one early in the game over the top of a double team to Ike. It was. That
was vintage Anton.
I'm watching that game at home, and I mean, what do you think? It looked to me like a second weekend team for the first time, maybe all year. You're like, that's a team that I don't want to play in the Sweet 16.
No, they did things that they haven't done. They hit their free throws like crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, nobody was.
24.
Anton drills a 3. That was a big 3 that he hit. They didn't shoot it great from beyond the arc, but enough to kind of, Greg hit 2 big ones. Nembhard. It reminded me of Andrew. I'm glad I mixed their names up, because Andrew just had that ability coming off those screens. It looked like he was directing. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, I got him. I got to step on this guy. I can do. That's how Ryan looked in that game. He didn't over penetrate. He did get blocked a couple times, but his shot selection was fine.
But one of those was like 2 seconds on the shot clock. He's got to get it up. And he's in those spots more than anybody else. He has the ball a lot, where it's late clock, and unfortunately he's 6 feet tall. So his ability to make something happen in those situations, it's not necessarily what you'd like. But
he just stirred it perfectly. Yeah.
He looks like a quarterback where the game is slowed down. Yeah. And
highly impressive. And then I'll tell you how good Huff was watching it. I'm like, I think he scored 8 in a row.
Yep.
And he wasn't getting hurt at the defensive end. Mark said his defense isn't up to industry standards yet. But he was, holding his own. He rebounded fine, did all those things. Yeah. They got to a point, I was talking with Theo and from our paper as well, and I thought, well, when do you think Ike goes back in and when not? And I got to the point where I'm not sure I'd take Huff out. He was that good, and they did. But I think they probably got an extra minute or 2 there for Ike to rest, because they were actually holding their own and maybe advancing the lead a little bit. That's how good he was. But and Ike came in, had a big bucket too, and then I think he fouled out. and they piecemealed it at the end there. I think they wanted certain free throw shooters in and
Yeah.
matchups. So it was
No,
just very impressive all the way around. It really was.
Everybody had a moment, and that's I think sometimes folks like Hickman's a good example. 17 points, 11 of those in the first half. Doesn't shoot it well, but you're not winning. You're not up what you're up, and I don't know if you're in the game if he doesn't play that half, right? And then, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, and had a same poise to him that Ryan did. He looked completely unbothered by any of it. Did his thing, didn't get rattled by, they're booing him a little bit because he'd signed there. He had a great poise and confidence to him as well. And that was all of them.
Yeah, but he doesn't shoot it well, but he's 5 of 9 inside the arc, makes his 4 free throws, has 5 rebounds. So he for that stretch, he's the guy. And then I thought to start the game, it was Greg's the first 90 seconds. It was like, whoa, okay, and he's everywhere. Yeah. Then Hickman, Nemhard the entire game. Ike has a few stretches in there. Watson down there. You win these games collectively. So I don't really care that Hickman didn't do much in the second half. What his value, his part of the getting the win was in that first half. He was just really, really good, and I think your point about his poise, his confidence, and I was trying to think about it. I mean, is that the best game Ike's played since he's been here? When you think about, and I know he might have games with better statistical numbers,
type of game, in a big game,
but and he's not playing. Kentucky doesn't have an Edie or the kid out of Connecticut, right? That have that height and length, but are strong. I mean, that's the one thing about Kentucky's bigs is, as we used to say back in the day, they're kind of light in the ass. So they're long and they look good, but they don't have there's not a lot there, so you can move them. And so those guys who get their elbow at the rim but can't hold their ground don't bother you as much. But what I really was impressed with Graham was he was so patient. He had a couple up and unders. He didn't get sped up at all. And I think earlier in the year, if he was missing shots or maybe struggling on the offensive side of the ball, that kind of filtered in everything else.
Yeah.
That's not the case now. I think he's the next play guy now with the ball. If he misses the shot, the one thing he's got to do though, there needs to be like an intervention about the fouls. He's just too. I've been saying all year, Nemhard's their most important player. I think Graham's their best player, in that he's the only guy you can throw to down there, and he's the one guy you've got to double. He's the one guy that every team is worried about going off for over 20. He's done it now, I think, more than anybody else. But some of these fouls, and then I don't know when it happened, and now the way he barks at the officials,
yeah,
it's really like, I mean, I'm thinking to myself, like, you're not in the league yet. Like, in college, I mean, that's gonna come up and bite him at some point. It was St. Mary's, it was really obvious, and then obviously Kentucky. So I think they got to figure that bit of it out. He's, hey, everybody gets back. He's so physical. He's going to have some calls that go against him that are just chippy, right? And it's going to drive him crazy. But what the conversation needs to be, it's like, well, Graham, here's a clip of you fouling 4 times and no one called it. Like, on balance, it all evens itself out. Like, we need to just stay a little bit more level-headed, because St. Mary's is a close game, doesn't get a T. Kentucky is a close game, doesn't get a T. He's got to find a way. But look, I'm nitpicking. I think it says a lot about how this year's gone. You and I are both like, oh my gosh, what an amazing win.
Yeah.
It's just been hard. They just haven't had one yet.
Ike, I think, had 4 shots blocked in that game. He only missed, I think, 7. But he kept, he didn't, they're blocking me, I can't do this. He kept on his moves. I asked him about it. He said, just try to find that one little advantage, whether it's a bump, whether it's a move that get a little crack, a little opening, and he scored. But we got to move on. We got a few things to get to this week. Back on the road at Loyola Marymount on Thursday. Lions had a tough week. They lost twice last week. I've got an injury, a bunch of injuries down there. I think they suited up 6 or 7 guys, scholarship guys, in their last game. Did not see Dominic Harris in the box score. I'm going to assume he's hurt.
Yeah.
the former Zag that transferred down there. One quick thought on these guys. They showed they didn't show a lot of fight when they were in Spokane. Very unusual for a Stan Johnson team. They're always physical, tough-minded, dish out some bruises. I have to believe, depending on their health, that they will be a little more competitive come Thursday.
Yeah, you would think so. I think Dom, I'm looking it up right now, against San Diego.
Yeah, he played 13 minutes in the first and then did not play in the next, if I remember.
Yeah. So I'm guessing, yeah, I'm with you. I think he's injured. I tried looking it up this morning, but couldn't find it. Well, I remember talking about that game, and it's about as unprepared a team that I've seen all year, maybe in a long time. And I do think Johnson's a good coach. I like his approach. He has had good teams there before, but he's had teams there that haven't had a lot of talent either, but they've always been really competitive. And sometimes you just flush those games. You don't even watch the film with the team. We all acknowledge that it was not our best night. Let's not linger on this or dwell on it. But I'll be interested to see what's the crowd look like too. At least I've been to a few of these road games in the league. It's not been the type of atmosphere Gonzaga's probably been accustomed to on the road.
Yeah.
And for Gonzaga, just you tell me. I mean, that travel down to Rupp is not easy. Now, those guys are flying a little different than you were at 5 o'clock in the morning on Sunday.
On that I'm going to get to, Foxy.
But hey, you get back super late or early morning Sunday, and you've got the turnaround. And I said it earlier in the pod today. Their approach has been exceptional all year. So I got no reason to expect they're not going to be ready to play this week over the next couple games. But there's always a little bit of there's a natural, coming on. You're coming down from a real high there. Both the atmosphere, yeah. But I'm hoping that they unlock something, and that starting five is really good, and for Gonzaga obviously, and then I think if they can get those three freshmen just to be, productive. Not about the scoring. I'm not going to belabor that point, but I think they'll be fine over the weekend. And I think they still want to be tested, and obviously LMU didn't give them that at home. Let's hope it's a little bit better down there.
Pacific on Saturday, back up here at the Kennel.
Yeah, I have that one.
Pretty surprisingly good battle down in Stockton. Pacific came to play, fought to the end. I think it was a 9-point win for the Zags down there. So they put up a very good fight under Leonard Perry down there in Stockton. I think they're 0-11 in the conference play. They're going to have a tough time cracking, through to get that first victory. Be a tough assignment for them up here, obviously, in the Kennel. But we'll move on. I want to ask you about one thing. And you mentioned Rupp Arena and what it might have sounded like on television. That environment is unreal. The pregame, the way the people pour into town, all wearing Kentucky blue sweatshirts, hats. They fill up every hotel and restaurant. I mean, it is all blue. Waves of people walking from downtown to the arena. It's right there. My taxi driver, when I landed in Lexington, kind of a really neat old guy. He's got a Kentucky hat on. You here for the game? First question he asked. You here for the game? I said, yep, I'm here for the game. He works for Big Blue Nation, the website. He's got to be in his 70s. And he's a moderator, I think they call it, does some posts and people react, that kind of stuff. He gave me a scouting report on those guys driving. I think it's about a 20-minute drive. He gave me the lowdown on every guy. He had bet on the Wildcats to win the national title before the season.
Right.
You sit in a restaurant there, and Kentucky people will walk up to you. Not me. I didn't have the Gonzaga gear on, but I was at a sandwich shop where a couple of the GU administrators were. 2 or 3 times, fans walk up, they see the GU logo, welcome to Kentucky. That's the first thing they say. And they mean it. I mean, it was impressive. And then you get to the building and they play that intro hype video that is about the same length as a documentary, it felt like. I mean, it was impressive. The walls of that arena with all the jerseys, you'll recognize the numbers, names, everything about it. And they are ear splitting when they're on a roll. I mean, it is 20,000 going bananas. I have been in a lot of places. I'm not sure I've been in a place quite like that. And then they played in the Dean Dome, was very similar to me, North Carolina. McHale, Pauley didn't have the environment, but it's a legendary place. McHale's loud when it gets going. All the great venues they've played in across the country. That is right there at the top. And I was curious what you think the best venue was that you got to play in, and what did that come across on TV the other night when the Zags were pulling out that win?
Well, to your second question, I mean, you're watching them on the free throw line and you're looking at the player and you look up, it's like a sea of blue. I mean, it's just, you could tell it's just an enormous venue. Allen Fieldhouse, when I was at Colorado, played Kansas there a couple of times. That was very, very cool. Their student bodies there like an hour and a half, 2 hours before the game, and just yelling at you the whole time. But a very, I guess probably a lot like that, like the way you described Kentucky. Although I remember, I'll never forget this. I was inbounding the ball gone out of bounds, kind of in a weird spot on the corner, and I'm on the baseline, and an old lady has the ball in her hand. She's got to be in her 70s, and she's wearing a cardigan, pearls, and the official's not quite there, and so I go to get the ball, and I said, nice catch, ma'am, or something like that, and she tells me, "F you, Fox."
No way.
I'm not kidding you. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, what? She meant that to like her core. Just, it was so ridiculous. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
And then she wouldn't give me the ball. She gave it to the official. And then I remember we played Oklahoma State, Gallagher-Iba. Now, Oklahoma State has subsequently, they expanded the gym by building around it. So when we were there, they'd started that project. So these big walls outside of the original. And then I don't know how they figured out a way to combine it all. And now it's a much bigger venue, but at the time it was pretty small.
Yeah.
And and they were really good that year. They went to Elite Eight. And it feels like they're on top of you. And they're really hostile too, not very friendly. I remember I called a game when Gonzaga played at Michigan State. That was a pretty cool venue too. So yeah, no, that's the fun. That's some of the coolest parts about being affiliated with a program, either playing for it or covering it. Is sometimes you get to go to these places you might never go to. But yeah, I mean, I would love to see the Dean where Carolina plays, or maybe one day they'll play at Duke, and you can go check that out. But one thing I want to say is, you talk about Pacific playing well down in Stockton. It's 2 years in a row, and you've not been down there. So. Yeah. Clearly,
I pulled a hamstring.
Okay. Oh, okay. So next year, I'll see you there next year.
I can already feel it hurting for next year already. Foxy, that was a great story on the lady at the.
I'll never forget it.
KU game. That's a lifelong memory. So hey, that's going to do it for this week. Enjoyed it as always, Foxy. We thank everybody out there for catching up with us each Monday on the Zags Basketball Insiders podcast. Post this one here in a few minutes or an hour, or hopefully we'll have it up, and I will tweet it out so you can find it. And come back next Monday. We'll have more to talk about. Thanks for joining us.